Hi, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Kimbra Runyan, and today this mobility set is to help with any hip pain or back pain. First, we'll do some hip cars, so go ahead and grab a chair, or if you want to, you can hold onto a wall for some support. I personally like a chair just because that's my setup. So with this, make sure you're not going to kick anything near you or behind you. All you're going to do is hold onto a chair. You're slowly going to lift that bent leg up, open it up out to the side, bring it back around you. You want to be sure not to lean over, but rather to try to stay and keep your back nice and straight. Keep your shoulders stacked over your hips the entire time. What can help too is to try to ground your foot into the floor underneath you. So not really gripping your toes, but really rooting down into the ground. That's going to help with stability a ton. You want to breathe really slow and controlled with this. And I like to think about you're climbing over something, and then halfway through we're going to switch, and then you're going to climb back over the other way. So this is how it would look if I just used a wall. Lift the leg up, open it out to the side, flip that heel up, and then bring it back around. So again, you want to stay pretty much straight. If there's a little bit of a lean, completely fine. And if you can't get your leg as high as I can, that is totally okay. This might feel uncomfortable at first, but shouldn't feel painful or pinchy in any way. If it is, you might be going a little bit too high for what your body might be ready to tolerate. And that, again, is completely okay. We're all different. We all have different starting points. The important thing is just to listen to your body and only go to what height and depth feels good to you. Now we're going to prep for hip airplanes, which is really great to help us with stability. And so grab that chair if you have it. Again, you can hold onto a wall for this one, but for this, a chair is probably going to be easier for you. With hip airplanes, I like to start with bending at the hips and then lifting the heel. So the bottom leg that you're standing on doesn't have to be completely straight. I like to have a soft bend in it. It helps me just engage my lower half more. The hand on the hip can help feel your hips open up. So with this, you want to make sure the glutes are nice and engaged and the core is engaged. You do want to almost create a straight line from your heel to the top of your head. And one way to make this spicier is when you open up, instead of coming back down to neutral, you're going to come down a little bit closer to the floor, almost closing that hip in. That's going to help work on more hip internal and external rotation. Now we're going to go ahead and switch sides. Focus on getting nice and set up. Be sturdy first, and then you're going to lift the leg and open up. You can try a couple, just continuing to open up, or if you want to, you can open up the hip and then come back down to the ground to stand if you need a break. Sometimes it can be helpful to look at your foot, to look at your heels, to see where it's going. And you're just going to open and close. This one is challenging. It can be spicy for the glutes as well. So again, this is what it would look like on the other side. Open up and then close back down, and that is for more of a progression of this exercise. Make sure just to breathe comfortably. Slow inhales, slow exhales. Feel very controlled with this whole movement. Now you can go ahead and move that chair out of the way. And then we're going to make our way to the floor to do some 90-90 variations. So 90-90s are really, really great for the hips. They can be challenging sometimes for some people. So if even getting in this initial position is uncomfortable, you can sit on some pillows, you can sit on some yoga blocks. Anything that doesn't add compression to the hips can be a lot more accessible. I like to take a few minutes or a few seconds to get situated in this position. So after we've really opened up the hips, doing the hip cars and working on hip stability with the airplanes, sometimes the muscles can feel a little bit tight or a little bit spicy. So just allowing yourself space and time to get comfortable with these positions, maybe rock back and forth, sway side to side, focus on nice, big, deep breaths. Every exhale is going to allow your body to get deeper into the movement, because with our exhales, that's telling our body and our brain this is a safe position, we're okay, and that allows the body to rest and relax. Now we're just going to cycle back and forth from side to side. One way we can progress it is as you bring the legs over, you can lean forward. So we want to focus on leaning the chest towards the ground versus rounding over and making our shoulders closer to the ground. So we don't want to just collapse forward. That's not really benefiting us much. What can help is if you have your hands on your hips and you focus on just the hips shifting forward so the chest is coming closer, keeping the back nice and straight. Again, we don't want to round over. We want to stay nice and straight as we lean in. You might feel that the hips start to cramp up. Totally fine. You can shake the legs out if that feels better for you, but then just get right back into the movement. One way to make this movement easier, if it did not feel great to lean forward, is to just windshield wiper those legs back and forth. This would be even easier, so the knees aren't even coming near the ground. We're just adding gentle movement into the hips, really pairing that with breath to calm everything down. Now we're going to go into a shin box. So this is one way that we can also progress these movements. So you're just going to come up on your knees, squeeze the glutes as you do so, slowly lower to the ground. So we're not just dropping our butt back on the floor. We want to slowly control that. That's going to help us increase some strength for our glutes, which can be very, very helpful for the hips. This is really good for hip stability and hip strength and mobility. Now after those 90-90s, take your time to get up into a quadruped or all four position. So now set up on all fours, and then you're just going to extend one leg out to the side with the foot flat on the floor and your toes pointing forward. So keep the spine nice and straight, keep the arms nice and straight, and you're just going to shift your weight backwards. So these adductor rockbacks are phenomenal to get a nice good stretch on that inner part of our leg. So with the hips, we often forget to work on the inner groin or the inner side of our leg, even though it is all connected and very important to make sure everything feels nice and loosey-goosey. So inhale as you come up, and then exhale as you lean back. And this is what it would look like from the side. So again, on all fours, you extend that one leg out, toes pointed forward, spine is nice and straight, and you're just sitting back. So you're trying to get your glutes close to your heels. Totally fine if it doesn't actually meet there, but that's the movement pattern that we want to see. So inhaling, coming up, exhaling as I'm sitting back onto my foot. Now we're going to go ahead and switch sides. So to get set up on all fours, extend that leg out, toes pointed forward, and just sitting back onto our heel. Inhale up, exhale as we sit back. Anytime we work on hip mobility, very important to work on strength and stability as well. So this whole blend of exercises is phenomenal at working on all three of those components, which is also great. I have another hip mobility video I'll link to here. Some of the exercises are similar, but some are completely different. So it's good to have a couple different routines for the hips. It's great to repeat the same one so our body gets used to it. We can start to progress into the movements, but it's also good to keep it nice and fresh. Now we're going to get ready to work on hip internal rotation. So take your time coming back on all fours. You can stay in whatever position you were. I'm going to switch just so you can see the movement better. We're on all fours. Our wrists are underneath our shoulders. Our knees are underneath our hips. And then you just want to focus on having that foot come out, and then you sit back the way I am. It's kind of confusing to explain, so it might be easier if you just watch how I do it. You can maybe pause it or rewind it so you can really feel comfortable with this. The main points though are to keep the spine nice and straight the whole time and moving very, very slowly. Now we're gonna go ahead and switch sides. So I'll show you what it might look like from a different angle if that can be helpful. So this is essentially how the knee should be moving. So first you kick the foot out and then you open up the knee as you sit back. So it's similar to the adductor rock back we just did, but this one biases the hip a lot more to get into that hip internal rotation. The hip is really mobile, so we just want to make sure we're working on a lot of different actions and movements of the hip. And now how I like to finish this is just to rock back, almost like getting into a child's pose, and then slowly settling down into a brief child's pose. It can feel really nice after everything you've done so far. Hold it for a couple breaths. If you want to hold this for longer, feel free to pause the video and stay here as long as you would like. It's very restorative and can feel so, so good. And then whenever you're ready, make your way to sit on your butt. Now we're going to work on the quads. So again, with the hips, we want to focus on many different areas. So we're also going to work on the quads and the hip flexors. So sit nice and comfortable, have your arms behind you to provide some support. Sit up nice and straight, and you're just going to lift one leg straight in the air. I like to think of really lifting like my big toe into the air versus my leg, and that just helps me keep my leg nice and straight. These ones are spicy. So if this is too much, you don't have to lift your leg this high. Lift it however high feels okay and tolerable. If you start to cramp in the front of your quad or where your hip flexor is, just shake the leg out and get right back into it. If you want a little bit more of a challenge, you can hold the leg in the air for a couple seconds before slowly bringing it back down to the ground. One way you can progress it is to bring the opposite leg close to your chest, hug it, and then start lifting that leg. So because you don't have that support behind you with your arms, this is more on the core and way, way more on the quad and on the hip flexor. So I definitely need a little bit of a break because it is a lot. Shake them out and we'll get ready for the next one. And now we're gonna get ready to do a down dog. So make your way into a push-up position. And I will say this video ends very abruptly. I lost track of time and I had to go pull a patient on needles because I film these when patients are on needles with acupuncture, and sometimes I have to quit filming and then go pull them. So my apologies, but at the end of this, if you want to hold it for a Shavasana or lay on your back and have some very restorative breaths, that can be so, so wonderful. But these down dogs, you're just gonna cycle back and forth, bend the knees, you can rock the hips side to side. It all is so restorative for the back side of you, also for the calves and for the back.